Okay. I can't believe I have to ask this question literally 2 days in a row. What year are we in? I need to know. Like, according to my computer, it's the year 2026, which is rather odd because last time I remembered, it's not 2016, which was the year that literally every celebrity we. Oh my God. When the calendar year ends in the number 6, all of our favorite celebrities are going to die. That's got to be it. That's got to be the explanation. Honestly, it's the only logical explanation I can think of. I mean, the fact that Dolly Parton passed away, that's already sad. But Tim Curry too? I mean, listen, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Tim Curry had actually been sick for quite a while. He suffered a really bad stroke a few years ago, and I mean, listen, a stroke is a stroke. Once it happens, you're either really lucky or you're not. That's pretty much how strokes work. And, this hurts, man. I mean, I'm still hurting over Dolly and now Tim Curry too. Like, I literally saw a friend of mine post this yesterday. It's basically a picture of this one woman walking up to the Grim Reaper and just snatching his scythe away from him and saying, "You're done. Stop doing it." Like, that's it. Like, death seems to be on an apparent rampage because I can't think of any other explanation why. Well, good morning and happy Thursday, folks. If you couldn't tell, the death of Tim Curry is my low. Outside of that, my high was I had a very relaxing Wednesday. And my act of kindness was I actually did I emptied the dishwasher for my folks, emptied their dehumidifier, brought in their garbage cans. Yeah, did a few things for my folks yesterday when I was visiting them. But man, this hurts. I mean, a person I've been watching for a long time, Eric Rodriguez, aka E-Rod, aka the Blockbuster Buster, made a post on Twitter sometime in the last 24 hours when he said Tim Curry gave 100% in every role he was in when 10% would have sufficed. My God, that could not be more accurate for what Tim Curry gave to all of us. It couldn't. That is the most real, true statement I had heard in the last 24 hours. And it's absolutely true. Tim Curry literally gave every role, even if it was in something that we all knew wasn't going to be very good. Like, anytime you ever saw Tim Curry in a bad movie, or in the case of some voiceover roles like, when he was in Garfield 2. Like, anytime you ever heard Tim Curry's voice, you just couldn't help but smile. You couldn't help but smile and be like, oh, what's going to happen now? Because it's Tim Curry. I mean, everyone has their favorite Tim Curry roles. Obviously people are going to say Pennywise from It. Some people are going to say, any of his other miscellaneous roles he was ever on when he was doing voiceover work in shows like being a bad guy in Ozzy and Drix, or, The Mighty Ducks. But I've got not one but two introductions to Tim Curry. And here's the thing. I was a little kid at the time. I didn't know how acting worked, or, what actors do what, or who was doing what. I've said this many times before, but one movie that I've seen more times than I can count is easily Muppet Treasure Island. And Tim Curry played the villain, Long John Silver. And, listen, it's the Muppets. It's going to take liberties, and, come on, it's the Muppets. They're awesome. But it's very clear that if Tim Curry was doing a role that would best describe as him just having the time of his life, having fun, he's still a villain, but you're kind of rooting for him to just, as long as he's having fun, you can't help but smile at what he's doing. And, my God, man, Tim Curry as Long John Silver was outstanding. I watched Muppet Treasure Island numerous times just because I love the Muppets. I love Kermit. I love Gonzo and Rizzo and Miss Piggy and Bunsen and Beaker and Fozzie Bear and everyone else who was in Muppet Treasure. And Sweetums. I love Sweetums. And Sam the Eagle. Seriously, I've been watching a lot of little clips of Sam the Eagle lately on The Muppet Show. And for real, if I was ever in a Muppet movie, he's actually a Muppet I would hope to do scenes with. Just because we both have the same expression. I'm trying to add some levity to this otherwise very sad video, if you couldn't tell. Man, I can tell you what right now, anytime I ever see Tim Curry in anything or hear his voice in anything, it's just going to hit a lot different. It just is. I could say the same for Dolly Parton. I could say the same for Hayden Panettiere and Sam Neill and so many other people, and Catherine O'Hara, so many people that we've lost. And again, are we sure it's not 2016? Are we sure it's not 2016? Seriously, what's going on? I said earlier that I have two introductions to Tim Curry. Obviously, one being Muppet Treasure Island. And listen, it's Tim Curry. You all knew this was coming. But growing up, I watched The Wild Thornberrys. And I'm pretty sure if you've ever been on the internet for any given period of time, then you know that Nigel Thornberry, who was played by Tim Curry, is probably the most memeable cartoon character of all time. He'll show up in moments where it's supposed to be someone's face, but it turns out to be Nigel Thornberry, kind of like a jump scare type thing or whatever. Here's the thing, and I was watching the Mysterious Mr. Enter talk about this, shots of the Mysterious Mr. Enter. But the funny thing about the Wild Thornberrys is, Nigel Thornberry, for being as memeable and quotable as he is the best part of the show. He was the best part of the show. And I don't think anyone other than Tim Curry would have made a character so memorable unless, if it was done by anyone else, I'm sure it'd be memorable, but I think we'd be leaving for wanting more. But Tim Curry didn't do that. It's like I said earlier, he gave 100% in every single role he ever did. When 10% would have been fine. Because he's Tim Curry. He was awesome. He'll always be awesome. And as I got older, and I've gone back to look at the works of a lot of other famous celebrities, of course I would pay attention to Tim Curry. Of course I recognize him as Taurus Bulba and Darkwing Duck. Of course I recognize him as the hotel concierge from Home Alone 2. And of course I recognize him for Dr. Frankenfurter from Rocky Horror Picture Show, which I've never really shared this before, but for reference, I identify as straight and cisgender. Always have, always will. But I am also an ally who's very comfortable with his sexuality. No kidding, if one stage character I've always wanted to portray is Dr. Frankenfurter. And it was because of how Tim Curry did it. Sure, I'll dress up in drag and sing the song Sweet. Seriously, have you heard the song Sweet Transvestite? There's a reason why Doug Walker, aka the Nostalgia Critic, shout out to Doug Walker, put Sweet Transvestite in his top 11 villain songs. It was actually tied for a Dentist, sung by Steve Martin from Little Shop of Horrors. I believe they're both tied at number 7, if I'm not mistaken. And I really could go on and on, but it's Tim Curry. There was, it's been said a lot for so many people in the past that there will never be another like, ... And you know what? I could easily say the same thing for people like Dolly Parton or Sam Neill or anyone else who sadly passed away this year or in years past. But if you grew up in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, you knew what you were going to get when Tim Curry ever appeared. Whether it was in person, on live action, or as his voice. And I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that I can sort of do a Nigel Thornberry impression. So if you'll bear with me. Hello, I'm Nigel Thornberry. Hello, Hoggy. Mumsy. I can even do it like, I can, yeah. Listen, I like to personally think it's one of my better impressions. I know it's probably cringe for a lot of people, but please understand, whenever I make an impression of someone, or do an impression of someone, or talk about someone, or even if I happen to make fun of someone, please understand, I wouldn't do it if I didn't care. If I didn't, I'm pretty sure that if Tim Curry wasn't a liked person, we wouldn't have him obviously we wouldn't have him in such high regard. But, listen, we've all made fun of some of the, characters Tim Curry's portraying. Listen, I just said earlier, Nigel Thornberry is one of the most memeable characters on the internet. And, yeah, it's funny that he's used as a meme, but anytime I've ever seen that, it wasn't out of, disrespect. It was legitimately out of sincerity and love for the character. The impression I gave, I just did of Nigel Thornberry a couple seconds ago. Partly it was to liven the mood a little in this otherwise very sad video, but I wouldn't know that without watching Tim Curry work. Put his heart and soul into that role. I don't think anyone would have watched The Wild Thornberrys. Well, The Wild Thornberrys actually had a really great cast. The late Tom Kane. It's another person who passed away in 2026. Tom Kane was Darwin. I believe Flea was Donnie. The lovely and talented Lacey Chabert as Eliza Thornberry. Seriously, The Wild Thornberrys had a great cast. Holy cow. Now that I think about it. This one hurts. This one hurts very much so. I mean, I was talking to my father about this last night because he had heard that Tim Curry passed away too. And I mean, listen, as a father watching his kid, of course, whenever I watch Muppet Treasure Island, he just happened to be watching it too. And so, yeah, we love Tim Curry as Lon John Silver from Muppet Treasure Island, which was actually one of many things that brought my father and I together and why, I actually have a relationship with him that I do. But I had to ask him, like, obviously outside of Lon John Silver, what's your favorite Tim Curry role? And he mentioned the doctor from Rocky Horror, Dr. Frankenfurter from Rocky Horror Picture Show. And he also remembered him as the hotel concierge from Home Alone 2. I think it was also in the movie Clue, but I could never pay attention. Because I think Clue is one of those movies that has like multiple endings based on, who did it, obviously. I mean, what can I say? Literally any time Tim Curry's presence was on screen, whether it was just his voice or his entire person, you couldn't help but pay attention. He had that charm and charisma that, you take one look at that guy and he's like, that's interesting. That guy's, I want to see this person do more things. Which is something that really is hard to do. Well, here's the thing. I wouldn't say it's hard to do, but it's hard to be able to do that while also being someone's true, authentic self. Because, I mean, listen, we all heard this story, fake it till you make it. But Tim Curry was a man who never faked anything. And I can tell you right now, the world is certainly not going to fake their sadness when it comes to his passing. This morning, as I was preparing for this video, I actually saw a really touching and very sweet picture of the pearly gates in heaven opening, and it's Dolly Parton walking in with Tim Curry dressed as Dr. Frankenfurter, and Dolly Parton says, "I couldn't have picked a better +1." You know what? I can't argue with that. That is a couple who is walking into heaven through the pearly gates. Everyone is standing and paying attention and applause. I have to imagine that's going up in heaven right now. Because, Dolly Parton and Tim Curry are two people who brought so much to the world. And had so much to offer to the world. And they gave what they had to offer to the best that they could. And, well, it's cloudy out right now, but make no mistake, the world is going to seem a little less bright without them. But like I said yesterday, the one thing we can do is, move on and try and make the most of it. That's what I'm going to try and do today. And I hope you all too. I hope you all enjoyed watching me talk about the greatness that was Tim Curry. And if you did, feel free to like my video and subscribe and stuff like that. You know the drill. So there's no better way for me to end this video by saying that I am very humbled that over the last 2 days I was able to talk about two of the greatest people of my generation. I almost said Dolly Parton and Tim. I almost called him Tom Curry. Oh my goodness. Tim Curry and Dolly Parton, who touched so many lives of my generation. I got to talk about them. Believe me, I'm humbled to be able to do that. And I hope any fans of both Tim Curry and Dolly Parton see this video or the video I made yesterday and be like, you know what? Yeah, I hope it finds you all well. I hope Tim Curry's family finds this video well, if they're watching this. I hope Dolly Parton's family finds yesterday's video well, if they actually watch this. And remember, if any of you guys want to talk or chat, you know where to find me. I'll definitely always listen. So, take care, and you know what? I think it'd be a most fitting thing to say that Dolly Parton and Tim Curry throughout their lives made good choices. So I think we should all do the same. So take care, and let's all make good choices. 607 all day, baby.